What happened in 1988, 89? That would have been, this is going to prove astrology. What happened?
Yeah. 89, I got married.
Okay, stop right there. Every single person's chart I can point to when they got married, when they got divorced, so that's timing. And that's the amazing part. And in the book, it's Saturn. Saturn is ruthless and it's relentless and it's completely predictable. So at 28 to 29, everyone you know will have gone through a major shift, getting married, getting divorced, changing jobs, changing cities, having a baby, losing a baby. It's crazy. So there's one of the very strong, that's what made me believe. I came as a skeptic. I was like, come on, this stuff doesn't work. And then after, literally, I've been doing this for 50 years. After so many years of doing it, I was like, I can turn to someone and say what happened, and she tells me that's the year she got married. I randomly pick a number out of a hat that's based on Saturn, and you're spot on. That describes astrology's value.
Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. Ever wish life came with an owner's manual? Well, according to my guest, Debra Silverman, it does. It's written in the stars. For over 40 years, she's been blending astrology, humor, and psychology to help people laugh at their quirks, love who they are, and live with more joy. Join me for a cosmic conversation that's sure to be as entertaining as it is enlightening. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now, let's go chat with Debra. Debra, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled you could join us today.
Thank you so much.
You describe astrology as, quote, medicine for the soul. What do you mean by that?
I think the psychology, because I have a master's in clinical psychology, and psychology was supposed to be the healer, which I suspect has great power there. But when it's combined with astrology, the medicine becomes very specific. So it's a custom designed medicine that specifically identifies the person you're sitting in front of. Because typically in therapy, the therapist doesn't know you from Adam. And it takes a long time to download the nuances. And usually you have a terrible opinion of yourself. So the way that you're going to present yourself when you go into a therapy session is you have a problem. That's the first thing people say. They always present their problem. And I'm looking at the chart going, that's a reframe we need here. And that's the medicine, is taking what you think is wrong, because you don't go to a therapist unless something's wrong, and reframing it with, this was exactly what your personality is supposed to be doing. Now, here's the high road and here's the low road. So we can distinguish that, but you can't change your personality.
Oh, say more about that. What do you mean you can't change your personality? If somebody's just like born in a bad mood, they're going to be in a bad mood their whole life?
No, that wouldn't be a personality. That's an emotional topic. So I would say that personality, like if I look at your chart and I see specifically what is your character. So let's just see here. I love using astrology firsthand. So
do you need my birth date or my birth month or
everything? You're a Taurus. So
I'm a
you're a
Taurus.
very grounded, solid personality. If I said to you, oh, just leave it. It doesn't matter. Don't follow through. Don't be consistent. You'd be like, uh-oh. It's hard to change the instinctual part of your personality. So we want to give people permission slips to go, no, you're supposed to be solid and stable and reliable and consistent. That's the most natural thing, and it's not going away.
Well, that's profound because I've always thought of personality. If somebody's always in a bad mood and they're cranky, I always think they just have kind of like a sourpuss personality versus somebody who's joyful and seems to be living life to the fullest and all of that. I think, well, their personality is really happy, but you're saying that's not the personality.
I would distinguish that as a mood, that there's certain people that have an emotional body that discolors everything. And if they're prone to depression, that's a chemistry game. If you're prone to being grumpy and you have a negative self-talk, it can be identified through astrology. That would be a classical Virgo personality type, or a Cancer, where they really do feel all the time and they can't alter their mood. That's a personality trait that's described by the chart. And then I get to say to the grumpy one, excuse me, what you really want to notice is that you're so sensitive. And you need to really take care of your vulnerability. And it turns into a beautiful gift rather than, oy, I'm so sad. So there's a way to reframe those personality traits because they don't go away. But they do have the free will button is simply, I become aware of my personality type and I give myself permission and everything relaxes.
All right. That makes perfect sense. That's brilliant. Well, I've been talking to you for less than 5 minutes and you're already throwing out brilliant things here, girl.
That could be one of your
Some,
reels.
yeah, could be. Some believe they were born at the wrong time. Is it possible for a person's chart to be stacked against them?
That's such a great question. So I always say God wasn't having a bad day when she made you. She was following directions from your Akashic records, from your history, from your past lives. There's inheritances. Like some people spent the last 20 lifetimes and they worked and worked and worked. This lifetime, they came in wealthy. Some people were artists in a past life and spent their entire lifetimes not making any money, but painting all day, and they came in with the skill set as a child. So there's inheritances that come in, it's true. And that is a timing factor. You're right. The chart does say some charts I can look at and go, oh my, they really took on a lot of karma this life. And it's not an easy chart. I can really look at that and see it. And some people came in with effortlessness. And you see it in children. That to your point, the happy continent, that personality type that's smiling, and then the one that came in grumpy. And there's a way, this is where the medicine comes in. Once you're aware of it and you're inside the astrology chart, you can say to the mom, listen, this kid needs quiet. They don't want to go to the party. They're going to look grumpy at the party because they love being home. And I get to tell moms and dads, this is the nature of your child. Now you follow their nature and they become very happy. That's what happens.
Wow. Hidden links, obviously.
Yes.
Can you share a story, and maybe you just did with this child example you did, but can you share a story where astrology completely transforms somebody's life? Give us another one. The child one was a good start.
Yes. So let's do an adult one. So someone comes in, it's a great example. She came into the first session. She was very Taurus. She was very shy. She had a personality type that was stable. She worked really hard, successful, but not public and doesn't have a public face. So I'm in the room with her and I'm looking at her chart and I'm like, hold on a minute. You have so much fire in this chart. Where is she? And she was like, well, when I was a kid, I was really athletic, but I left that behind. I'm like, hello, if you don't move this fire and reactivate what you left behind, you're going to end up getting overweight, being lazy, and feeling really stuck. And so she started exercising. She realized all the fire that was in her chart that was built there when she was a kid. It was effortless. But as she got older, it got left behind. And her husband wrote me and thanked me and said she lost all this weight. She's back in her body. It was just because she didn't recognize that she had this gift that was still waiting. Even though as a child it was there, it diminished as an adult.
Because she was overwhelmed with all of the things that she felt
It's very
responsible for.
all the
Yeah.
practical things called her name.
Yeah, yeah, my girlfriends and I laugh, and you probably have had the same conversation, and our husbands say, "Yeah, honey, I'm going to bed. I'll see you up there." And he goes to bed, and he's asleep, and I've got 15 things I gotta do before I get into bed. I gotta check make sure the plants are watered, and make sure the dog has water, and make sure that the doors are locked, and the alarm is set, and the dishwasher's on, and yeah,
And that's your Aquarius rising. That's the part of you that moves at the speed of light. It's very different than your ego personality. You're slow, but you've got a part of your chart that's a speed freak who's just always noticing the future. She's always noticing what should be getting done. That's where she
yeah,
goes.
yeah,
So and then of course your husband doesn't have that. So he's like, can you relax? And you're like, not really.
yeah. Well, I'm learning to relax in
Yeah,
my
it takes time. That's the point
yeah,
of astrology. You become aware of like, why am I impulsive?
yeah.
Why am I
Well,
moving so fast?
but makes a good CEO and inventor, which is what I am.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Why do you think astrology has survived for just forever? I think it's been around for forever, and it's in all cultures. Why is that?
4,000 years old. It's the truth. I mean, we know when the tides go in that the full moon is we can look at a farmer's almanac and know exactly what the waves are doing. We know a woman's cycle by 28 days. Everything on this planet is ruled by lots of things is ruled by the moon, but we've lost the understanding and we put it in the back room and called it a parlor trick. Somehow it got put by the church. They were like, "You don't need to know about your individuality. You need to follow." So it wouldn't help me to tell you what your personality is because you're part of this group and you've got to conform. So it got taken out, but the truth of it can't be taken out. It's still like every person like, I live in Hawaii, and all those men on those boats, because I know them, they know all the moon cycles. It's been passed on by words through the Hawaiian culture. They know what cycle they're in. They know where to go according to the sky. This was ancient times. We always had a relationship with the stars and the cycles and the moon. It was our friend, but then the lights all came on, electricity arrived, and we suddenly got this entirely new idea that we didn't need to use nature as our guide, and we went into technology, and so astrology is the last remnant of an ancient science based on hard data. It's not woo-woo, it's astronomy. Like, I know what time you were born, where the planets were, and from that, I can tell you, and they've been saying the same thing for 4,000 years, the personality type that comes with it. It's so funny.
Well, I love how popes and kings and world leaders today. Reagan was famous. Nancy Reagan was famous for having President Reagan's charts done, especially after he was shot. And they didn't go. She would not let his office plan things unless they consulted the astrologist first to see if it was an okay day for him to go travel or whatever.
Happy. And that's something I don't do. I don't do predictive astrology. It's a specific specialty. I work psychologically, but more than that, I work soulfully. So I ask, what did this soul sign up for this life? That's my whole school is based on what's your purpose? What stands between you and your purpose? And how do you get into that sweet spot where your personality lightens up because you're being yourself? So I'm more psychological than I am predictive, although I do know how to do it.
First time I had my chart read, some rocket scientist. I was born in Columbus, Ohio in the late 50s, and some rocket scientist decided at the Department of Records or whatever for the state that the birth time didn't need to be on the birth certificates. So people that were born in the 50s and 60s in Ohio, the time of birth is not on the birth certificate. And when I was having my chart done for the first time, my mother was deceased. My dad was still living, and I asked him, I said, "Do you have any idea what time I was born?" He's like, "No, we were in the hospital for hours, fluorescent lights. I don't know what time any of you guys were born." So I called my mom's spirit in and asked her, and she gave me the time. And then I gave it to the astrologer, and she said, "Well, this, and this should have happened at those times." And she was right on the money. So, why is time so essential?
Story. I love that story. Um, Timing is everything. Think about it. Think about life and how you met your husband and how the kids arrived and how you changed jobs. And while you can't see it, back to my point, until we speak this language, we can't really translate how important it is. But once you're aware, like I can predict when people are getting married, when they're getting divorced, when they're having babies, what their baby's personality is like, what they're going to do when they grow up. It's so evident to a seasoned astrologer. And I have get this, 30 astrologers that I've trained who are now doing readings full time because I do this game called matchmaking. Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. I get the chart and then I fix them up with the right astrologer on my team. It's because I've seen over and over again that timing is like, it's shocking how accurate astrology is. And once again, it got left back there in some kind of a like, no, come on. You didn't drink the Kool-Aid, did you? Yes, I manufacture the Kool-Aid.
Right. And back to the moon and the tides, that discussion a couple of minutes ago, I lived in a sorority house in college. All of us had our periods at the same time. We all synchronized like metronomes. What's up with that?
That's rhythms that occur at the water level. That is the moon. And if you think about it, everyone cries at a funeral, everyone cries at a wedding, everyone cries at the same point in the television. We have these impulsive, instinctual rhythms that make us the same. It's a universal song. But for some reason, we have disregarded like when the bodies all go into tandem. We think it's so America. It's no, we're in constant flow with each other. There's
Mhm.
moods during the day, and it's described by the moon.
Interesting. Yeah, we used to laugh because, all the waste paper baskets were full of tampon applicators. All at the same time, we all knew, everybody's like 70 girls all at the same time. It was wild, wild. Your new book, I Don't Believe in Astrology. What a great title. Challenges skeptics. What's the most surprising truth you've discovered that can open even the most doubtful hearts to astrology's wisdom?
So, I'm gonna ask you a funny question. What happened in 19 I think it was 91 for you? You were just turning 30. Are you born in 61?
No, I was born in '59.
59. I'm older than you. So what happened in 1988, 89? That would have been, this is gonna prove astrology. What happened?
Yeah, yeah, '89, I got married.
Okay, stop right there. Every single person's chart I can point to when they got married, when they got divorced, when they so that's timing, and that's the amazing part. And in the book, it's Saturn. Saturn is ruthless, and it's relentless, and it's completely predictable. So at 28 to 29, everyone you know will have gone through a major shift, getting married, getting divorced, changing jobs, changing cities, having a baby, losing a baby. It's crazy. So there's one of the very strong that's what made me believe I came as a skeptic. I was like, "Come on. This stuff doesn't work." And then after literally, I've been doing this for 50 years. After so many years of doing I was like, I can turn to someone and say what happened, and she tells me that's the year she got married. I randomly pick a number out of a hat that's based on Saturn, and you're spot on. That describes astrology's value.
Wow. You wanna try another one just for fun?
I love that so much. It would have been 2019. You should have had another major shift.
2019,
So that was
2019.
yes, just 5 years.
What happened in 2019? My son got married.
Son got married. So these are the markers where
Yeah,
your whole world shifts, the whole
right?
play. And there it's another Saturn cycle. And Saturn is a very influential I'm in love with Saturn. I'm doing a special class with a summit that I just designed recently that people don't realize that there's this clue. It's a really powerful clue that gives you permission to prepare. Like I could have said to you, 2019, your whole family structure is going to shift. And you would have been like, "Oh," and you or I could have said to you in 1989, you're gonna, "Oh, I found my husband." And these are described by timing brought to us by the stars.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I met my husband and he asked me to marry him 3 days later. And I said, let me think about it for a little bit." And then we got married like 3 months later. So, yeah. Yeah, Saturn was busy bringing him into the picture, obviously. How about that? How'd you get into all this cosmic stuff? Were you a stargazer as a kid?
No, I think I was reading your story as well. I've always had a very, very strong intuition. And as a child, my dreams came true. I had the gift of being able to see people and who they really I could see people's illnesses, from a very young age, I had this gift. So, I can't say that I learned it per se, the intuitive part, it came instinctively, and then as I started to utilize astrology and psychology, my practice just boomed because it was so accurate, and people's lives were changing. So, it started off with, "Uh-oh, I'm a little weird." And then, "Uh-oh, I'm fascinated by astrology. I can't get enough of it. I'm so in love with it to this minute." And then I followed my love.
Well, what introduced you to
It's a strange
astrology?
story. It's such a strange story, Julie. I was in university studying dance, and I had a friend who was there. She was a triple Gemini. She was an astrologer, I didn't know, and she had to drive across the country. We were in Canada. I was in Toronto, and she had to drive across the country for 3 days, and she said to me, "Would you come with me?" And I said she had just done a reading for my family for the Jewish holidays right about now, in 1976 or 75, and I was so I could not believe because I had a very eccentric Woody Allen went to change one outfit. They were little Jewish folks that were the cutest little things, but they were very eccentric. And she went around the table and described everyone, and I said, "I'll make a deal with you. If you want me to drive across the country so you're not alone and you'll fly me home, if you'll teach me astrology in the car." She was like, "Sure." So literally for 3 days I'm just taking notes, and then finally on the second day, she was like, "Deborah, in the back of the book in the back of the car is a lot of books. Just pick." I said, "No, no, no, I'm auditory, keep going." And I just made her repeat it over and over, and by the time we got out of the car, I was obsessed with astrology, and then I had a dream, as I described to you, I've always had strong dreams, and I used to have this little Chinese lady who followed me around in my dreams, and she was screaming at me in the dream, "Stop acting so dumb, silly, you've been doing this for lifetimes." And I woke up, and the next day I started charging.
Wow. And then how did you integrate it with your therapy practice?
We're the same age, and so it was during this was the '70s, and it wasn't a popular time, and by the time I got to graduate school, they were, like, I wanted to do research on psychology and astrology, and they were like, "Come on." I was like, but I have a very strong personality, you probably can't tell. And so I insisted that I do a research project on chronic mental patients in astrology, and they let me do it. And so I integrated, and then I found out, get ready, Carl Jung was an astrologer,
Oh,
and
wow.
he was quoted to say, "Psychology will be a dinosaur science until it includes astrology." That was in the '70s, I found that out in the '80s. So I just hitchhiked and said, "Okay, everybody, I'm gonna do this." I just gave myself permission even though I had no support. Because in
Oh, I'm
graduate
sure.
school, they were like, "What?" She was from Harvard, she was a superstar, this supervisor, and I said to her, "Let me just try it." And there was such a correlation between mental illness, what I found in the charts, and I made this whole research project, and they were so impressed with me.
And so when you got out of school and you opened your practice, it was already integrated and did you advertise that was part of your menu of offerings?
That was all I was prepared to do. As soon as I started, I realized because I was in supervision, and when we would sit with people, as I described, they come in with everything wrong, and I'd be like, "Hold on a minute." I'd look at the chart like I would look at yours and go, "You have a workaholic. This isn't going away. If you're thinking it's a problem, I'm taking that off your plate because it's not a problem." So I'd reframe the very thing people think is wrong with them is what God gave them to participate with.
And do we choose the a semblance of the script that we wanna come in and explore and experience? So
I
would somebody who's a workaholic go, "Mm, I'm gonna incarnate as a workaholic, and then I'm gonna, see where that goes."
Yes. I get offended when people say that we choose our parents and I mean, I would never have chose my parents, let's start there. But I do think it was an assignment. I think there's a karmic, akashic record. There is an organization beyond this level. Einstein said it the best, God's not playing with dice. It's organized. There's a rhythm. There's a season to things. It's really organic. And so when you come in, if you have many lifetimes, back to what I said, I'd been an astrologer for lifetimes. Surprise! I came in this life running right towards the stars.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I've found out that I've been a healer for billions of lifetimes too. So,
Don't
yeah.
surprise.
And then we explore different aspects of it in different ways is what I've found. I've did it the traditional way, the healing thing as an inventor and manufacturer of surgical devices, and now I'm doing it the woo-woo way. But it's all still about healing. How has that materialized in your life? You were interested in astrology. How has that grown and evolved over the years with you and with what you're interested in and your practice?
A great question. I started so when I hit 60, which is 10 almost 10 years ago, I started a school, and I didn't really know what it meant. If someone said, "Do you wanna do an online school?" Because of our age, I was like, "A what?" I'd never heard of it. So at the sweet age of 60, I jumped in, both feet, hired all these women, started a company, and didn't know at that point because at that point, I was a practitioner.
Right.
I was just working one-on-one for years, and I had a lot of, very wealthy clientele. I had celebrities. I got really well known, but I never ran a business for a school. And the next thing I know, it's 10 years in, and the school has it's amazing. We've had 8,000 students come through and study who don't know anything about astrology, beginners just like you, think it's a little interesting, and then I give them the bagged potato chips, and they can't stop eating them.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating. I don't wanna know all the intricacies. Give me the bottom line.
Yes. So one of the things about your chart is the sweetness, that you really are kind. Your moon's in Libra, and so being a Taurus Libra, it's like for you, fairness and people being reasonable and taking the high road is a really big deal for you.
Mhm.
And you're like the balancer, you're like the mediator. You're like, "Please don't fight." You're always trying to bring
Yeah.
peace wherever you go.
True, but why is that I feel like I don't need, and this may be the businesswoman in me, I don't need to know how and all the details, I just need to know the bottom line. You're the expert, you do your thing, you tell me what I need to know.
Yes, as such a smart businesswoman, why am I wasting time on things that aren't interesting? You value time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, and I don't need to learn it all. I got
no, not
you.
necessary, right. And you just the example at night, you're in the future preparing and planning things. The last thing you need is extra data that's gonna weigh down your mind. It's heavy enough.
Yeah. Yeah. You say the stars don't predict our future, they reveal who we are. We've touched on that here briefly earlier in this conversation. Please expand on that. And for somebody who's hearing this for the first time, give them the cliff notes on how this is all set up and how it works.
I can't, in all honesty, say that I'm an expert because there's a big mystery in why Pluto, the furthest planet out, is in perfect order when it comes and hits your chart. It's a major change, just like Saturn. So there's some abstraction, there's some mystery. You have to suspend your left brain, but you can move over to your right brain, which is your intuition and your knowing, and that's where astrology really stands out. So that questions that how does it work or where did it start or how can it be? I love those questions, and then it always leans into, do you have faith in gravity? Because you don't know how that works. Do you have faith in love? Because you have no idea where that comes from. Can't see it. Do you have faith in God? You don't know where the sp so it's the same with astrology. There's this deep lying abidance I have because it's the oldest science on earth. It's passed the test of time, and for me, as after 50 years, I can confidently say there is not one person's chart that I can't say the year they got married.
Well, the other thing too is I think all of us, we know when something resonates with us. We know in our bodies, okay, this may not make logical sense, but this is there. There's something to
Feeling
this.
you're
Yeah.
describing is the distinction between linear logic, but then the soul feels in their body and knows the truth. This is so true of you. And when the body tells the truth, it doesn't lie. The the mind and all the stories, I do believe in astrology, I don't believe in astrology, da, da, da. It's like so much noise. Let's go rely on our heart. And that's what's made my popularity, why my school's been so successful, because you can feel when I'm talking how I'm in love with astrology. I've seen miracle upon miracle, just happened this weekend. People falling in love right in front of me, explaining to their husband, "This is why I don't talk. I have no air in my chart," or "This is why I clean all the time. I have all this earth in my chart. Please stop getting mad at me. I can't help but criticize you. I got all this Virgo," or "Gee, I really wish that you would laugh a little more because 'cause I'm supposed to be funny and you're not getting the joke." We explain it to people like, "This is what your personality you need some feedback, little Leo. Someone has to applaud and laugh at your jokes or you're gonna get your feelings hurt. This one doesn't want you to talk to him. He's busy studying, reading, cleaning, and you're annoying him with all those words." And that's what I can do looking at a chart.
I love it. Do galaxies far, far away affect us as much as the planets that are in our own galaxy?
I don't know the answer to that. I would suspect that because, one of the I'm teaching for Shift Network in November, the combination of the tarot and astrology, and that they're best friends. This is really random, but in the 15th century, the tarot deck, which you probably know of, started, and there's 22 major arcana cards. They're like the 56 playing deck, that's the regular deck, but there was these 22 that were spiritual cards, and every one of them, get ready, 12 of them were the 12 signs, because we know there's 12 signs, and the other 10 of the 22 were planets. But the cards were developed in the 15th century, and we didn't find Pluto till 1930. But they left exactly enough cards for our system, our Milky Way. Someone knew that this was a closed system. So inside that system, we have to master this reality. So when people talk about Mars or going out to other, I'm like, hold on, hold on, hold on. Didn't they give you the assignment this time to come here? Can we just settle down for a minute? Because we're not doing real good. And it's really a escape art to get out and start thinking about abstraction when really the question is my heart open?
Mhm.
Am I in love with my life? Can I accept my fate? Am I wrestling with victim? These are the questions that should be asked, not about the outer planet. Woo! I mean, to me, it's fascinating. I go to the planetarium every chance I get. And the absolute practical applied astrology, which is the name of my school, doesn't include those outer planets.
So Spirit's talking to me in my head about this while I'm listening to you, and I'm hearing they absolutely play a role, all those other galaxies far, far away. And what I heard from Spirit was it's like they're all balancing each other. It's like it's a big kaleidoscope where one is moving and the other one moves, and it's all keeping it all in one big, I'm saying goulash, one big
Galaxy.
galaxy, really, that's comprised of what, hundreds of billions of galaxies, but they're all interrelated and they all affect each other, is what I heard.
Yeah, my question is always how does it apply to the human condition? Because that's
Yeah.
probably true. And what's the point? I'm very practical. My whole business is how do I change your life for real? But listen, this conversation, abstraction, going to the planetarium is like my favorite candy.
What I'm hearing is that they have an effect on our solar system, and our solar system, it has the effect on us as humans, which would make sense because they're far, far away, hundreds of billions of light years. Even even the planets that are in our own solar system are so far away, so many of them, that it's fascinating that they have as much
The sun is
influence
you
on
need
us.
the sun is 93 million miles from us in the exact distance to keep this planet at the exact temperature that will survive the human. See, that's why this system is so airtight. It's enough just to manage this and figure out how, as a human, I can evolve my soul because that's why you come here. Announcement. The evolution of the human species is your job. Every single person listening to this. That's why you're here. You took on the human, you took on all the drama, you got those parents, and you got that illness, and you got that husband, and you lost the dog, and all of that is a practice. It's such a beautiful practice of the human refining the species that we are.
Mhm. And we're here to have the human experience, to your point. In between lives, we're in heaven, everything's hunky hunky. And, we all are taught in our Judeo Christian culture that you got to strive so that you can, be in paradise. Well, I'm not saying heaven's boring, but that's why so many souls are clamoring to come to earth because they want the human experience to be able to create.
And to cry and to laugh and to have an orgasm and to eat and to smell and to dance and to have death come to your house. This place is a full movie. Like, we are in a unbelievably I swim every day, and I get in the cold water, and I think, "What am I doing? It's so cold." And then I use my body. I go, "There's no angels can go swimming with me. It's just me as a human. The angels are flying around. They don't get in the cold water."
Good point. I love that. Why do people often feel seen when they hear their astrological chart explained more so than any other way? They come see a therapist, they're talking to a loved one, perhaps a grandparent, who just thinks they hung the moon and all of that, but they really feel like, okay, this person gets me because they're telling me about myself with my chart.
It's so much fun. You can imagine how much fun my job is. It's because astrology is very, very detailed. It's not generic. People think it's generic. You can meet a Virgo who says, "I've read all the books. I'm not a Virgo." What they don't know is they have 5 planets in Libra. They're not a Virgo. So it's a generalization. Has bad PR. People just made it into a cheap date. It's not really got depth. Remember when we were kids, we would get those little tubes at the grocery store or it'd be in the magazine. Everyone had astrology in the magazines and the
Jean
newspaper.
Dixon. My mother read Jean Dixon in the paper every morning.
Ridiculous, just to say. So the point is we have a deep remembrance of it,
Yeah.
quality of distinction, what you're asking. When you go to a good astrologer, you finish a session, you're like, "She knows me better than my mom." And it's such a good feeling because 'cause you're being seen and you're being given permission slip. Like, "Okay, little workaholic, this is what you promised, Taurus. You're holding down the fort. That's what you came here to do." So then you go, "Oh, thanks. Now I can be myself."
So how do we get out of the negative aspects of that when somebody's a workaholic? So let's take it a step further to help them better their lives. How do they balance that with the work, family, social balance, all of that? Somebody finds out, all right, I'm a workaholic. Now what?
Right. So this is what we call Earth in my system. It's Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorns. They all suffer from this. And the medicine for that is just to slow down. There's no problem. You're always going to do the dishes. You're going to be the designated driver. You're going to take care of the money. You're going to make sure we're on time. You're going to call everybody to make sure they have a ride. That's who you are. You're a practical person that's taking care of us. Now, it can get over the top where you leave yourself out. And now you're broken and you're spent and you're unappreciated. That's the low road. The high road is, oh, you know what I learned from Deborah? Whistle while you work. Only do, especially at our age, just do what you like to do and then hire people or ask your granddaughter to come over and help. If Earth people could learn how to delegate and to ask for help and not feel responsible to rush through things and then complain after and then figure out all the things we did wrong, it would change to your that funny thing you said in the beginning about the sourpuss face. When an Earth person's overworked and they've really been a workaholic at the expense of the fun factor, then
Mhm.
they have to turn on their observer. This is what my book is about. You become and you go, "Oh my god, I'm doing that thing again. I am compulsively practical," says Taurus. And then there's a free will button. But if you don't know about the language, it's hard to give yourself the free will button.
And on the psychology side, for I think most women, it's hard to set boundaries and say no to stuff because we're just brought up to make it all happen and make it all work. How do you combine those two when it comes to being able to set boundaries? Because most of us, we have no clue how to set boundaries. I'm learning it now at my
Right.
age.
So a big piece is this word I'm gonna use again. When your observer gets cultivated, so it knows your personality, you've studied your chart, you're like, "Wow, I tend to get distracted by people and what they want of me, and I'm a pleaser." Women and men, because 'cause you've got Libra, Taurus. It's the both are ruled by Venus. All you want is harmony and everyone to be nice. So you've spent a lot of time making sure everything's nice. So what happens then is you're compulsively doing it. You study astrology and your observer comes on and the observer goes, "You don't have to do that." That's called a boundary. But if you don't have the awareness, it's another word for the observer, the witness, the consciousness of your higher self. If it's not operative, and this is what I teach in my school, how do you activate the part of you that is one, non-judgmental, it's in love with you, it's followed you around since the beginning of time. It thinks you're so cute. Doesn't care if you're aging. Your higher self thinks you're unbelievable. And it's so gracious. Now, when that voice is operative rather than a gremlin going, "I'm so tired. No one ever does what I do. I'm always the one that has to." When that voice is active, that's the ego, as compared to the voice of the observer, the soul that says, "Wow, you look tired." No judgment, just a report, like a New York reporter would just write it down in the New York Times, "This person was tired," and you don't take the interpretation of this is what you were saying earlier, I'm so tired. Why is it always me? Why don't you do it?" All that negative emotional content gets diminished once the observer's on, because that's neutral, it's like Switzerland.
Yeah.
And you just look over at yourself, and that's what astrology does. It gives you an awareness of the personality traits that you really wanna change half the time, and the other half you're really proud of. It gives a language to go, "Oh, right." So it took me years to figure out that I have excessive energy because it's in my chart.
Mhm.
And when I found it out, I was like, so I have to get up in the morning and go exercise because if I don't, I find myself getting short. I learned the skill with my observer to draw a boundary so that I didn't just keep moving. That girl I described that was the Taurus who had all the fire and she found out that she needed exercise. It changed her whole life. For some people, it's stop exercising and sit down. The observer says, "Would you stop being compulsive?" So you have to determine. And in my system, my first book I wrote was called The Missing Element. And you just figure out of the 4 elements, water is the emotional body, the quiet, the internal. Air is the communicator, what we're doing right now. Talk, 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 think, 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 study, 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 learn, learn, learn. Earth is the practical people who make their list, run the company, give the finances, take care of the insurance, and fire are the ones going, "Are we having fun yet? Let's have a drink. I'm gonna go have a party. I'm a little loud. I don't agree with that." They're just the loud people. So there's 4 categories in the system without knowing astrology, and if one of those are missing in your system, you're a victim. And you'll have to try to find a boundary. Like, your chart is so nice, it's a problem. Learning how to say no.
Yeah, I am. I am, and it feels weird, and then the key is how do you do that without feeling guilty?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then the observer comes on and says, "You need a new skill." It's right here in the chart. I could have just looked at your chart and said, "She's so nice that she doesn't know how to say no." That's Taurus and Libra.
Yeah.
And then I get to give you permission, like, "Well, let's not change it quickly, but let's just turn on your awareness and notice how often it happens."
Well, I say no, and yeah, but earlier in my life, I didn't. Like, even up to, I would say a dozen years ago. 10, 12 years ago. I mean, it's really come online in the last 10 years. And I think part of that's aging too. When
100%.
when I tell women who are turning 40, I say, it's like you're going through a passageway and your life's gonna evolve, and then when you turn 50, you're going into another passageway where it gets even better, and then when you turn 60, it gets even better than that, and I'm in my mid-60s now, and I tell people all the time, "I feel better at 66 than I did at 26, both physically and emotionally," and it sounds like you are the same way, and women especially, I think, we've been so brainwashed into thinking, okay, your body's gonna betray you. It's gonna break down. You're gonna be sick. You're gonna have to have all these surgeries. You're gonna have to blah, 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 blah. You're gonna have arthritis. You're gonna have, which is nonsense. No, that's not true.
I love hearing this. I feel like you're echoing everything I think.
Yeah. Dr. Christiane Northrup is a dear friend, and she was on recently, and she says, she said, "I've spent my whole career telling women what's right with their bodies
Yes,
instead of
she's
what's
a client of
wrong."
mine. She's a client of mine. Yes. When I get the privilege of talking to people like Christine Northrup, who's like and like yourself, who figured out the code, like you guys aging, I didn't know, I don't know if you knew, I wasn't prepared to be this happy. I didn't think I'd be reaching 70 with so much energy.
I saw my mother suffer physically, and she was born in '25. Now my Mima, my maternal grandmother, was great. She was healthy. But then my mom, who was born in '25, I laugh, I say we were all weaned on Twinkies. And so
Me
I think
me
yeah, she was in the era where they ate margarine and they all had bypass surgery and they all had, like,
and they
cancer and
smoked
they
cigarettes.
smoked, drank. Oh, yeah. She used to tell the story, she had 3 martinis the night I was born. She didn't have a drinking problem, they were at a party, and then she went into labor later in the evening, but they didn't even think about that, and that whole era of women and most of my friends, see if this makes sense too, most of my girlfriends from childhood and even adulthood, the moms died before the dads, and when I was growing up, the dads all died first. But the moms most of my friends' mothers have died before their fathers, and I think a lot of that was that whole generation of women that the food supply really was awful. It's
White
coming
bread.
in with margarine and Wonder Bread, you're still wondering what you're supposed to be eating when you're eating Wonder Bread and that kinda stuff, and then the whole hormone thing, they were all on the Premarin and the Depo-Provera and all of that, and they and low-fat diet, and they thought they were doing the right thing because that's what the doctors were telling them to do.
It's so fun to see. I'm so impressed with the age group because I have most of my students are between like 20 and 50, and then we have some 80-year-old students. We have some
Yeah,
90.
I do too, same thing.
And I'm so impressed with the youthful ability to take care of their bodies, to change their diets, to really be attuned to the natural rhythms, to the moon, talking about there's so much astrology out there now in that group. And we didn't that none of that was part of us. So look at the evolution. It's great to notice. And it's also wonderful to notice that we are the ones saying aging's wonderful because nobody ever told me.
No, I watched my mother suffer and my dad, and I thought, "There is no way I wanna go through that." I don't I just yeah, I lived in LA for a long time, and there were many times where I'd take a, emergency flight back to Ohio because they were heading into surgery the next day, and just to be there. But, yeah. I find it fascinating too how astrology has been the constant in all of these different cultures. You've got the Europeans and the
Yes, and the
Eastern.
Mayans, every single culture, the Hawaiians, the Polynesian, they all looked at the stars. It was a thing.
Yeah.
Or we had electricity. We only found electricity in 1780. I mean, it's 200 years old. It's a little more. before that, we spent a lot of time outside at night, lying down, making up stories, really looking at the stars and getting downloads and getting we were once clairvoyant. The society has changed because we've left our left brain as the centerpiece. That's the linear logical land. But the right brain, the intuition, everything you do, being able to activate the dream time and getting messages, that's come back online, and that's the female side. And so here we go. Whoop! There goes ding dongs and pink Twinkies, and now we're having health food and non-gluten, and, it's just changed so much.
Right. Speaking of everybody used to look at the stars, let's do a dive for a minute into the pyramids and the ancient and there are pyramids all over the world, even here in America. Are they lined up according to the stars? Is there a geometric component that brings in energy based on how they're positioned from a latitude and longitude coordinate standpoint?
I can't see I'm a person that's very practical, so I can't say it with direct experience except to say that in meditation, I was shown, like, I can't do the science part of this, that the pyramid itself is astrologically designed and that there's real indicators where when the eclipses happen, there's some movements and the same thing with Stonehenge. There's these very specific buildings that were brought to us by higher intelligence, including astrology being brought by ETs. There's no way the human mind could have designed an airtight system that I can look at every chart and know exactly what the person that's nuts. That's not human. That's ET. That's higher intelligence. That's AI. So we're returning now. It's very exciting. The Aquarian age is here. This is what Aquarius age is in astrology. What is Aquarius? Computers, technology, advanced forms, no more human. You hit this in your chart. It's a very advanced sensibility that looks at the future all the time. Now that's based on your birth time. I'm thinking you might be a few because if you're born 5 minutes off, your chart shifts. Is your body more sensitive or more intellectual?
Sensitive.
Yeah, I have a feeling your chart's just about a few minutes off. And what that
What's
would s
that mean?
it means that your intuition comes in your body as compared to in your head, that you register everything through a sensual, intuitive body sense about when you get information, and then it goes up in your head. Is that true? Do you feel like it comes
I
through?
uh, I'm a visual learner,
Well, that's
so when I'm like a human MRI, I can see inside people's bodies. So when I connect in with people anywhere, even in a galaxy far, far away, I get visuals first. Before I'm connected into them, though, I am getting what I call divine downloads. So I'm getting information downloaded into my head. And then I will see things, I'll feel things, I'll hear things, I'll smell things, all of them. And it's all developed because I didn't have dead people chasing me as a little kid. I learned how to do all of this stuff, and this is what I teach people how to do, and everybody has the ability, and we receive it's been my experience that we receive information from spirit in a way that's gonna be the easiest for us to translate it because it's been my understanding, and this has just come in the last few years, all spirit communication is numeric. It's all numbers,
well, that's
and
astrology.
then which is astrology, which comes into our heads, and then our heads decode it, and then it comes in visual, direct knowing, things like that. But, yeah, you see vortices a lot, the whole numerical vortex thing. Everything's numbers, which is
I'm
fascinating. And
That's
then
astrology.
and then people say, "Well, numerology is evil." No, it's not. Numerology's been around for forever. Numerology and astrology they're joined at the hip in my world. Are
And how did
Yeah.
they find Jesus anyway? Well, that's right by the stars.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't be telling us that it's just an unfortunate, evolution that part of our brain which you've clearly cultivated. And I love my took me years to be honest enough to admit that I was psychic, that I was intuitive, that I got downloads, that people whispered to me. I was in our generation, it was not cool. It was inappropriate to talk about, especially in graduate school for psychology. Yeah, it didn't go over big.
Well, yeah, and I got a whole story about, being a businesswoman, and I'm thinking, "Oh my god, they're gonna lock me up." But, here I am all these years later doing all this stuff and having an absolute ball like you. It's the most fun thing I've ever done. Yeah, yeah, and it just keeps getting better. Speaking of numerology, let's talk about that for a minute. How How when you say that astrology is all numbers, can you expand on that some for us?
Yeah, if you look at a chart, which, don't have one here, it's all absolute astronomy, and astronomy is the mathematical equation of where the planets are. And when I say to you what happened in 1989 or
Yeah, when I got
2019,
married. Yeah.
it was the exact year, that's a number. That was the exact year described by the number where Saturn came in and had its influence. So astrology is very hooked up to numbers, and numerology is one of my best friends. You can't be in the metaphysical world if you're really gonna be a practitioner and not know the language of the numbers.
Well, and numbers are in all the holy texts too. There's numbers all throughout the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament,
In
every.
Hebrew, every letter has a number in Hebrew and in English.
Is that right? Every letter in well, I know every letter in Hebrew has an energy to it.
It's a number. Same thing with in English. Every single letter, that's what numerology is. It uses the numbers that are behind the letters, like a D is a 4 and an A is a 1, and they add them up, and they could tell you the vibration of your name based on the numbers in your name.
Oh, wow. I wasn't familiar with that. I was thinking of 12 apostles and, 12 tribes of Israel and all of those
The
actual numbers.
zodiac.
But to your point, if every letter has a new number that goes with it, and that's the frequency that comes into spirit language is all numerical.
I agree.
Yeah, interesting.
When you
All
get
right.
to the level of clairvoyance and the mind is raised to a higher frequency, which is what astrology is good for. Astrology is Windex. It's like you go in there and you clean up a whole part of your brain that went dusty. And then by the activity of you studying just a little bit, it's like you come back online, and it really supports the memory. Astrology is a really good action step for the mind, for air people, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. They love putting words to things and understanding. And whereas your Earth, you're like, how much time are you doing that? Let's just get it done.
Yeah, but I'm an information suck though. I'm interested in everything. How does this work? What's going to happen there? I mean, everything. Archaeology, literature, whatever. My husband calls me an information suck
I love it.
affectionately. But yeah, yeah. Okay. So for somebody who's new to astrology, what's the first step they can take to start applying it in their daily life?
Just start by getting to know the elements. The earliest first step is that book, The Missing Element, which I sell on my website, and I put your chart in the book if you order from my website. Um, Just get to know the 4 elements, that they're the magician's magic and the tarot deck. The very first card is the Fool, like, how crazy are we to incarnate into this reality? And then the very first card, the number 1 card is the magician, and he has 4 elements sitting on the table. So if you learn the 4 elements to start with and know your personality type, not with the details of astrology, but with just the generic, like, am I earthy? Yes, to you, Julie. Am I airy? Yes, Deborah. Like, no, am I fiery? Yes, Deborah. Knowing the elemental constitution to start with, and that might take you down that rabbit hole, but just start with the elements.
If you had to choose one word to describe astrology and how it can help us live more joyful, productive lives, what would that one word be?
It's so beautiful. Unfathomable.
Ooh.
Unfathomable where it comes from, what it's about, what it speaks to, what it addresses, how it heals, how it wakes us up. It's my mind can't. I don't know who made it up, but I'm sending them gifts every chance I get to my invisible address.
I love it. I love it. By the way, I've been hearing this in my head the whole time we've been talking. Merlin the magician is to your right. He's been here the whole time. He's like, you need to tell her that I'm one of her main spirit guides.
Love him.
I do too. And throughout the whole thing, I'm like, okay, okay. Yeah, I'll talk to you. So, Merlin the magician, what do you love about Merlin the magician? And was he real? He's saying yes.
Yes. So in the tarot deck, that is Merlin, and he's got these 4 elements sitting on his table, and he's the alchemizer that knows how to use the human forms of creation into manifestation. I like to call it womanfestation, into womanfestation, because as you study the mastery of the magic that brought to us by the elements, everything starts to work. Like, it's so crazy when I see that my school and my success and my relation, I feel a little bit like once I talked to the magician, I broke the code and I wrote everything down he said, and I've been practicing it ever since. So I definitely know he's with me.
Yeah, yeah. He's with you. Interestingly enough, I've read articles about that. We all think King Arthur's court and the round table and the whole 9 yards was in England, but I've read that they've found that it was in Scotland, the Lady of the Lake and all of that, and they've found historical documentation that led to those tales that led to the whole Camelot thing.
I love that story so much.
I do too. I saw it on Broadway a couple of years ago, the revised version. It was wonderful. Yeah. Last question, why do we incarnate?
I said it earlier, it's the development and the refinement of the human condition. And we are at a critical moment right now where everything's going to break because we are on an expiration date. And we are the final generation that are cleaning out the wounding from our past and the entire inheritance that came before to the best that we can, preparing for the influx of AI coming to merge and take us to a higher expression of the human. You can't believe what's about to happen.
What's going to give us a sneak preview?
Well, first we have to break the government, the ecology, the environment, the financial. We have to dislodge this illusion. And so that's
Mhm,
not fun. I don't look
mhm.
forward to that as an elder. And then the compassion arrives. Like, uh-oh, we have to return to basics, to the sacred, to the elemental, to the magic, to clairvoyance. We'll come back. So everything goes in cycles. Everything goes up and down. Every single planet's a circle. It's all rhythmical, and we're on a rhythm going down. We're watching America. We're watching the world. We're watching the environment. We are in a questionable survival state, but don't you worry. It's just like giving birth. If you hadn't seen it, you'd think she was in such pain and this was all wrong. But if you're a midwife and you're wise and you've seen it before, you say, hold on, let me be in the room with her. Breathe. I got you. And then comes the miracle. And that's right the point we're at. We have never seen this before.
Will we see it in our lifetime?
I would say that within 5 years, there'll be a radical departure of the acceptable reality as we've known it. And then by 7 years, AI will be fully here.
And is AI something that we need to fear?
No, as long as you keep your eye on it, stop pretending it's not here. We're doing this funny game with it. We're like, go away. But the analogy that I make is in 1780, electricity was found. Now you have to imagine that for the entire existence of our reality, we never had light at night. We never had electronics. We never had any of this. So that introduction of electricity, which is the same planet that's affecting us right now, there's a big change, is now that there's AI is a comparable to electricity. We can't describe what it's going to do, how it's going to show up, how it's going to interface with society. I can tell you radical departure from the one that we are living in now. Just like talking about the snowballs and the ding dongs and eating that white bread and having margarine, that was the ancient times. And we are about to pass through a portal where we're going to look dated. Evil, meanness, violence, raping, war. There's not going to be those words in the next elemental version of the human condition. It didn't work.
Hmm,
So what's gonna
interesting.
be different is, the human you started off by asking about moody, emotional people. The unconscious mind is specific to the human. AI doesn't have an unconscious mind. It doesn't get taken over by its moods or attachments or neediness. So there's gonna be an interfacing with the best of AI and the best of us is gonna become a beautiful creature, and it's not comfortable giving birth.
No, it's not. And obviously we forget it because otherwise no woman would ever have more than one kid. Be like, "Oh, I'm not doing that again." Yeah. I remember in the middle, I didn't have any drugs with Jonathan, my son, and I remember telling my doctor, I don't wanna do this anymore." And she's like, "Honey, the train has left the station. Yeah, you'll be fine." And then I kept thinking, "Okay, hundreds of kabillions of women have done this and survived."
Oh my god, I had the exact same thought giving birth.
Yeah. I thought, "Okay, Ryan, you can do this. All these women have done this and they've survived and everything was fine." And it was, it was good. Did I look forward to doing it again? No, but
And you? Yes, because we
no.
can't stop
Yeah.
having
No, I had one.
but I bet you have lots of children who love you and think of you as their mom.
I do.
You don't have
Yes,
to give birth to give birth.
that's right. Exactly. Well, you are every bit as fabulous as I knew that you would be, and you've even exceeded my best expectations, and those were off the chart. So, how can people learn more about you and your work?
It's just 3 words, DebraSilvermanAstrology.com. You go to it's so silly because you relate to this. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, it's embarrassing at this age, what am I doing? But it is a great Aquarian age megaphone. Like, we call this message out, people find you on social media, and once you start seeing me, I have to warn you, you won't stop seeing me. I have really good marketing.
Wonderful. All right. We'll put that in all the show notes and everybody will come check you out in more detail. Everybody, we've given you a lot to think about here, and I love that you distill it down into understandable languaging that doesn't just put us into a brain freeze with all this astrology stuff, which so often happens.
That's
And
my I believe in astrology, it's all in English.
that's it. That's it. Sending you lots of love from Sweet Home, Alabama. Mwah! And
Mwah.
from Colorado, too. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends.